This is the case of aneurysm of aortic sinus, anterior aortic sinus with rupture. So you see in this image, this is left atrium, mitral valve, left ventricular outlet portion, this is aortic valve, and this is anterior aortic sinus, and you see the anterior aortic sinus is aneurysmal and rupture. You can see the continuous flow that happens at the rupture region. If it is the case of VS, if it was the case of BST, then it would have flow only during systole, not during the diastole. In case of rupture of this aneurysmal aortic sinus into right ventricular outlet portion, you can see this right ventricular outlet portion, the flow remains, this resistant flow remains both during systole and diastole. That is, you can say flow both during systole and diastole, continuous flow. So whenever you find continuous flow, that is likely to be from aortic sinus, rupture of aortic sinus. A rupture usually happens when there is aneurysm and finally it gets ruptured. So this is the case of a rupture of aneurysmal anterior aortic sinus. You can see this portion is aneurysmal portion, and this is the portion where the rupture has happened. Just measure, this is rupture, this portion is rupture. Now you see, so anterior aortic sinus has become aneurysmal and has ruptured into right ventricle outlet. So ultimately, right ventricular outlet, main pulmonary artery gets lots of blood from there. So what happens? Main pulmonary artery dilated. Ultimately, main pulmonary artery gives blood into RPA, LPA, pulmonary circulation, then pulmonary vein, then left atrium, then left ventricle, then again aorta. So ultimately, left-sided structure is dilated in this case, has to be dilated. Finally, when pulmonary hypertension develops, because you know the pulmonary circulation is getting lots of blood, both from aorta and from main normal blood flow from right ventricle. So ultimately, the pulmonary circulation also gives rise to pulmonary artery hypertension. In that case, right atrium, right ventricle will also get enlarged later in the course of this disease. So again you can see aneurysmal, this is aneurysmal aortic sinus, this is aneurysmal aortic sinus with rupture. Main pulmonary artery severely dilated. Now you see, this is the portion where the rupture has happened and blood is going very fastly into right ventricular outlet. So it is little bit going also into right ventricular inlet portion, and it is also going into pulmonary artery. Because blood is very fast, very high pressure is going into. So when you can see the continuous flow across the leakage portion, across the rupture portion. So whenever you find this kind of image, if you have confusion with BST will have only flow during the systole. It will not be continuous one. So whenever you find continuous flow at the interested part, in that case it has to be ruptured aortic sinus. So rupture of aneurysmal aortic sinus in this case. You can see again the same thing. Fourth chamber view, left atrium, left ventricle dilated, right atrium, right ventricle also mildly dilated in this case, mainly because of development of pulmonary artery hypertension. This is the apical fourth chamber view. You can see this is little bit D-shaped heart. Now you see this is aneurysmal part. This whole part is aneurysmal. This is aneurysmal part. This is aortic valve. This is anterior aortic sinus and has become aneurysmal, and there is rupture into right ventricular outlet. This is non-coronary sinus, normal non-coronary sinus. You see the movement, how the aortic valve is moving. Aortic valve tip is thickened and calcified. This is aneurysmal anterior aortic sinus with rupture. You see the rupture. This portion is ruptured. Now you see this portion has ruptured. Thank you.